So while most people were out enjoying the summer here, I managed to be inside suffering from the summer flu. The thing that really sucks is that I can't make these videos while I'm sick, I've learned, because not having a voice is kind of a big deal, and having puffy red eyes and runny nose is not conducive to being on camera. So I really apologize for letting things slip for a week or so there. Just couldn't get it together, and then I had a lot to catch up on. I mean, seriously, check out these goggles. I know they look ridiculous, but if you can see, they got a little bit of fluid in there, and they are for curing motion sickness. So I've got kids, they sit in the back of cars and they get motion sick. But the more important thing is I am part of the Uber generation. I take Ubers all over the place, and I can't work effectively in the back of an Uber because I start to get motion sick. And these glasses supposedly maintain kind of a gravity-driven horizon and make you not get car sick. I haven't tried it yet, but my kids say that it works. So I'm going to give it a shot. I'll put a link in the description for these. It took forever because they came from China. They were actually fairly cheap. I got the side things and I got the front things. It's so cool. Don't I look cool now? Not at all. I recently read an article about how 1/3 of all American workers were looking for a job. And that's because they don't like the job they're in. And I think a lot of people are really miserable with the job that they're doing. And I think in the tech space, that's especially true. What I've seen in the tech space is that there's been enormous turnover. People have been leaving the industry left and right, and new people who just don't have a passion for it or have the background for it are coming into the industry. And I think we're all kind of suffering for that. You know, some of this is a product of sort of the change in the marketplace, especially in the infrastructure space. And certainly a lot of that has moved to the cloud, and that's sort of changing the dynamics of things. And I think there's still a lot of need in other areas of technology. But I think to obtain the skill sets necessary to pursue a lot of those, it's very challenging. And also it changes so fast that it's really prohibitive for a lot of people to try to make an effort to adapt to some of the jobs, some of the emerging jobs in the space. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was a lot of the negativity that revolves around our industry. There's an old show from the 70s that I loved called Kung Fu, starring David Carradine as the main character, Caine. Caine. Why is that so hard? In it, he plays a Shaolin monk who flees China, a wanted man, to wander the Old West to put the hurt on villains who would prey on the weak. In this particular episode, he has a flashback to his childhood, where he and his blind master are walking the streets, and they come across a disheveled man who is picking up shards of broken pottery. He hands some shards of pottery to this man, and he turns to his master and he says, "Is he a confused one?" To which his master replies, "Not to understand a man's purpose does not make him confused." So his master sends him to follow this man, Li Yu, and he discovers that Li Yu is actually an artist, and he is making an incredible sculpture that is a representation of him and his life's work. And to which Caine responds, "I see that he has great clarity of purpose in what he is doing." And I think that's really representative of a lot of what I see in the space right now. Is there's lots of ideas coming out, and they're coming out fast and furious, and they're complex and confusing sometimes. And we are so quick to dismiss ideas, and we are so ready to entrench ourselves in the things that are familiar that sometimes we miss what the purpose of these technologies are. I see people constantly disparaging people's works and creations, and so much of it is because they don't understand what the purpose of what these people are putting together is. Oftentimes, we are the ones who lack the vision to understand what the value of this product in the market is. And sometimes it's the ones that are the hardest to understand that have the most transformational value. For example, when Amazon first started selling books on the internet back in 1994-95 timeframe, people looked at Jeff Bezos and thought he was absolutely nuts. And people started investing in this company and spending a lot of money on this company. And everybody's like, this can't last. This is not sustainable. And we had the dot-com boom and the dot-com bust. And everybody constantly was saying, Amazon is not going to make it. This makes no sense. There's too much money in it. They're never going to find value in it. They're never going to make money. But look where we are. And then when Amazon announced S3, people were like, who would store their data on the internet like that? That's crazy. This will never take off. Then we had the cloud and the hyperscalers, and everybody looked at Amazon again and said, this is never going to take off. People aren't going to move to the cloud. But look where we're at. It's extraordinarily disruptive. And for all the naysayers, I wouldn't bet against Jeff Bezos because he seems to be able to tap into something that we don't always see or is not entirely initially obvious to us. And when Pure came out, I was in a room of engineers, and the conversations were all around, I would never recommend Pure because who needs all that flash? It's too expensive. People just don't need it. Spinning disk is going to be here forever, and spinning disk is going to get continuously cheaper, and it's more reliable than flash, and yada, yada, and on and on and on. And you know, Pure had a unique value proposition in their data reduction technology that helped reduce the price of flash. And they had the foresight to see that the price of solid state storage would steadily decline. And they also had the foresight to see that the technologies would change, making it more dense, to the point now where you rarely see spinning disk except in really capacity optimized sort of scenarios. The introduction of flash had a whole lot of additional value, and it became more reliable, and it became denser, so it could exceed the storage capacities of spinning disk. So the all-flash data center was something that they saw that took us all a while to get on board with. And I'm reminded of this because I just recently had a conversation with a colleague of mine who was saying he didn't see the practical value of a particular new product that's about to hit the market. I look at them and I see they're drawing top VC talent. They've got an incredible group of people who are joining the company to work on this problem. But the path here is hard to see. We are currently in a situation where in large enterprises, the bulk of stuff is still on-prem with a bit of it in the cloud. But at some point, that's going to flip. So if you're looking at a product that's addressing both on-prem and cloud, it might make sense to be developing that product to focus primarily to handle loads that are in the cloud rather than on-prem. What I was saying is that maybe this company is seeing a vision of the future that we just haven't caught up to yet. I hear a lot of people talking about millennials in this same regard. And I remember back when I was coming up, I was playing games and I was playing on my computer constantly. And all the adults were saying, oh my God, stop wasting your time playing on that computer. The reality is we all saw a future back then that was very different than what our parents had lived. And I think the same is true for millennials. And I think they are changing the game a lot as well. And some of the things that we criticize them for are going to be big, impactful technologies in the future. Like, for example, we always criticize millennials about being constantly on social media. But what we don't realize is that they are having deep and complex conversations on social media. And if you look at what's happening in the market right now, look at me. I am on YouTube now. Why am I on YouTube? Because influencer marketing is really important. And YouTube is the center of that. And if you look at what's happened, it's the millennial generation and the changes that they have introduced around social media that are driving a lot of this. And it's not really a whole lot different than what we had done in the past, because our technology recommendations and interactions are based on relationships and building and fostering relationships. And this is no different. It just is a very efficient way of fostering and maintaining and building relationships. And they are the masters of it. And the other thing I will say is that when we talk about that Rogers innovation curve, and we've got the innovators and the visionaries and the pragmatists. The generation that's coming up are going to be the ones in that innovators class who are going to be making recommendations or may be the visionaries in companies now. They're getting older and they're getting jobs in enterprise. So we need to find ways to bring our messages to them. And I think along the way, we're all getting a lot of value out of that. I mean, the amount of stuff that you can learn and take advantage of on YouTube is amazing. And millennials who have grown up in this online world see infrastructure as utility. I mean, just in the same way as I'm sure generations past saw power as this exotic thing, now I don't think too much about power. I turn it on and I take it very much for granted, and I take the infrastructure around power for granted. What was central to our lives to build at some point becomes more ubiquitous and less relevant on a day-to-day basis and less core to the business that we are conducting. And I think it's not bad to start looking at infrastructure in this regard. And if enterprises focus on their core competencies, the greatest value generally tends not to be on maintaining large infrastructures. Time could be better spent building new products rather than spending time, money, and effort on building infrastructure. That's why we see this large transformation to software as a service, to cloud, and things like that. And that's also why you see this shift away from infrastructure teams to more lines of business, in particular marketing organizations, because they don't have the technical skills necessarily to operate infrastructure, but they do have domain knowledge about what their business is. So my point is that change is constant. Change is important, and change is good. And we all need to be part of embracing this change, because we don't want to be those people sitting in the laggard category complaining about all this new stuff while the world passes us by. We also need to be cognizant of the fact that we need to place some value on our personal lives. We don't take care of ourselves well. And maybe we could learn a little something from the millennials who are a little bit more purpose-driven, who are a little bit more concerned for being present and being in the moment and enjoying the relationships in their lives. Let's all embrace that change. Let's give people the benefit of the doubt on their technologies. Let's take the effort to try to understand why they're doing things. Because even if a technology fails, there may be some nuggets of really good ideas in there that we can take and use in the future. So until next time, embrace the change. So one other thing I just wanted to let you know, I wasn't totally slacking off the whole time I was gone. I've been working on some collaborations that I hope to debut here soon. Working on my partner in crime, Sandesh Patel, is getting his mojo going, so expect to see some content from him. I've been doing some research for some other videos that I want to do around some other cool topics, so that'll be coming up soon. So hang in there.